Hello and welcome to Educated STEM. I'm Kate, the founder of Educated STEM, and I thought today it was time I told you a little bit about myself and my career trajectory and why Educated STEM exists. And so let's begin at what I wanted to be when I grew up. I always wanted to be a veterinarian. And if you've watched any of my previous videos, you'll know that I did not become a veterinarian, and I actually have a PhD in biochemistry. So what happened? So I did all of my education in the UK. I am British, and so there are two sets of exams. You do your GCSEs, and I did rather well in those, and I was beginning the training for my A levels, which are the exams that you take before you are accepted into undergraduate college. And it became very obvious within the first year that I was struggling with the higher maths that was required to get into veterinary school, because it is exceedingly competitive and you have to get good grades, typically in biology, chemistry, and maths, which I was taking. But because I knew that with my maths, I probably wasn't going to be accepted, I looked at what my other options were, and I decided that I wanted to pursue something to do with biology. I've always enjoyed biology, and so I decided that I would go to a particular undergraduate university, and I was going to study genetics. But that isn't what happened either, because I surprised everyone by failing a chemistry exam, which then meant that I could not get into that conditional acceptance. So that was horrifying. As I said, I'm a biochemist. And so I will let you know that breaking up with a boyfriend in the week before your exam's probably not the best idea, but you live and learn. And so I then had to go and make an additional plan. So I looked at what other universities and courses were available, and I decided to go and study applied biochemistry and molecular biology. And that was a much broader degree than I was planning on taking, and I think that actually served me very well. It was interesting. I got to learn a number of different subjects that I wouldn't have if I had gone the purely genetics route. And it also gave me an amazing opportunity because it was what's called a sandwich degree. So you do 2 years in school and you learn all your courses. And then in the third year, you have to leave. You have to go and get a job either at a research institute, a university, or in a science company. And then you come back for your fourth year and you complete your degree. And so that means when you actually leave with your degree, when you graduate, you've already got a year of research experience, and that's really very beneficial. So yes, the first lesson, failure happens, and it's really how you respond to it. I obviously had to make a plan B, which was the genetics course, and then a plan C went into effect, which was the applied biochemistry and molecular biology course. So you just keep having to reassess and move on with what you do. And I want to just mention two of my favorite quotes. The first is by Nelson Mandela, which is, "Do not judge me by my success. Judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again." And the second one is by Seneca, and it says, "Don't stumble on something that's behind you." So yes, we fail, we make mistakes, but move on. Don't flagellate yourself about it, because that's not going to help anyone. Feel bad, wallow for whatever length of time you need to, but move on, let it go, and figure out what you're going to do with your additional plans. And if they don't work out, make another plan. Just keep reinventing what your dreams and things are as you go. That also means that you have to be adaptable, because I wanted to be a vet. I'd wanted to be a vet since the time I could probably walk. And it was very disappointing when I realized I wouldn't get in. But I adapted and I changed my career plan, and then I changed it again. And then obviously I'm no longer in a lab, so it changed again. And it's okay. I ended up doing cancer research at the University of Oxford. So for Plan C, it's not really doing too badly. And now I have Educated STEM, and I enjoy doing that as well. So be adaptable. It will definitely help you in the future. Now, The third year that I was talking about was amazing for me. I got accepted to go and work in America, something I always wanted to do. I wanted the chance to live on a different continent, see what it was like, but I also wanted to try doing cancer research. And I came to two uh, pivotal conclusions, or I had one formative experience and one amazing conclusion whilst I was in America. The first was I gave an oral presentation for the first time, and to say it went horribly would be an understatement. I had prepared, I was very nervous before I went up and gave my talk. And I even said at the beginning, I am a visiting undergraduate scientist. I might not be able to answer your questions, but I will try. And the talk itself went pretty okay. And then there was someone who was very, very aggressive with the questions. And in fact, they were so aggressive, my postdoc had to get up and handle the questions for me. But to say that it affected my confidence would be the understatement of the century. It took me years to build back the confidence to speak in front of an audience. And it's obviously something that you need to do as a scientist. You talk all the time, whether you're showing your results to your group, your department, at a conference, either as a poster presentation or an oral presentation, you need to be comfortable doing that. And so luckily for me, I kept chipping away and practicing, and eventually I became more comfortable with it again. And today I give talks at institutions and I talk at conferences. And if you see me, and I hope you do see me, I will be a little nervous before I go up. I'm going to say I have some butterflies in my tummy. But a few years ago, I had a herd of elephants in there. So if there's something that you're not comfortable with, then keep practicing and hopefully things will improve. It took many years and many presentations for me to get to where I am now. And it's just unfortunate that one bad experience really set that off. But practice, you will improve. The second thing was that I was surrounded by people with PhDs. And up until that point, I had my university lecturers, but I hadn't really interacted a whole amount with them. And so I had them on pedestals, and I thought that they were all-knowing messiahs. And once I was in a lab and I was surrounded by people with PhDs, I realized that that isn't the case. They're very intelligent, they have a lot of knowledge on particular niches, but they don't know everything. You know biology, but you are not an expert at everything in biology. You have a very small niche, maybe something to do with cancer, maybe it's a particular pathway. Whatever it is, it's fairly specific. And I realized that if these people could have this expertise in small subject areas, I could do that too. So it gave me the confidence to come back to the UK and to apply for graduate school, which I did. And I was interviewed at the Medical Research Council, which is the equivalent of the National Institutes of Health in America. So it's very prestigious. And I had a panel interview. And there were 3 professors in that interview. They all heard the same answers from me. I had particularly wanted to work with one of them. And I was very disappointed when he rejected me. And it was a little heartbreaking. I'd never really been rejected like that before. And to be honest, it's not something that you get terribly used to, but you just have to realize that you're going to get on with some people better than others. You're not going to be everyone's favorite cup of tea. But the funny thing is that one of the other professors who had sat through the same interview really liked my answers. And so he offered me a position in his lab instead. So again, you're going to be gelling with certain people and not others. That's okay. You can't get on with everyone. You can try, but it's not going to be something that you need to stress over. So I started my PhD with a wonderful gentleman. I learned an awful lot. It was very biochemical. It was on a DNA repair pathway called base excision repair. And I then moved on to do my first postdoc, again on a DNA repair pathway, but a different one called homologous recombination. And I learned very quickly into the experience that I didn't enjoy working on homologous recombination. I absolutely loved working on basic excision repair. I found the whole thing fascinating. I loved learning all about the enzymes and other things. Homologous recombination just wasn't as interesting to me. And so I finished that postdoc after 2 years and I moved to the University of Oxford and I actually did applied research. So, what does that mean? Everything up until that point had been in a Petri dish, and I was still working with Petri dishes and cells, but I was working on a targeted radiopharmaceutical that was going into clinical trial. And my role was to figure out how it affected DNA repair pathways. Thankfully, not homologous recombination, it was non homologous end joining, which I again found fascinating. But just because you find something like DNA repair interesting, it doesn't mean that you're going to find all of them interesting. So just pay attention because it was a surprise to me. I thought I was going to love my first postdoc experience, and I really didn't. I then left Oxford, and the thing that I regret is that I didn't publish that work. I have presented it at conferences, but I never actually got it in print. And so even though I've written the papers, I've sent them to my old professor and for other people, and eventually they just haven't been published, and it's a huge regret. So if you move on, if you finish your PhD and you haven't published, if you have finished your postdoc and you haven't published, try and make sure that everything is to the point where someone can easily take your data or add on to a paper that you've already partially written so that it can actually make its way out into the world and be published. It is heartbreaking that what I consider my best work has not been published. And it's a huge regret. So learn from my mistake. Don't do that. Make sure everything gets published. I left Oxford and I made another mistake. I followed a boy to America. And that relationship didn't last particularly long once I had come here. And I had to make the decision about whether I was going to stay in America or whether I was going to go home, which would have been rather embarrassing. So I decided to stay. And at that point, I had started getting involved with the Association for Women in Science, the local postdoctoral association at my institution. Through those, I got involved with the National Postdoctoral Association, and eventually I was elected onto their board of directors and became the chair of the board. And I learned so much from my peers and the other people that I worked with in all of these different organizations. And so I really built my soft skills that you don't necessarily build in the lab. And because of that, I was then offered a position in the graduate school at the institution that I was doing a postdoc at. And I was really unsure of whether I should accept the job. There were a few main points that the job consisted of. The first one was doing enrollment and admissions for the graduate students. So I'd have to go out and recruit and then do the interview process and then enroll them. And I thought, okay, I've mentored graduate students. I've worked with lots of graduate students. I think I can do that. That sounds like something that's more than possible. The other section was that I had to run the summer academy. So high school students and undergraduate students were going to be coming to the institution for a research experience, and I was responsible for it. And that terrified me. I was really concerned that working with young adults was going to be very dramatic, and it would be kind of a terrible experience. They wouldn't listen, they would be doing naughty things. And that isn't the case at all. I actually really enjoyed my time with the Summer Academy. I loved meeting all of the students. They were incredibly curious. I had amazing conversations with them. And it's been really lovely following their careers over the years. So I have previous students who were in high school when I met them, and they've now graduated high school, they've graduated undergraduate college, they've gone on to medical school, and they're now in their residency or they're surgeons. Or I have students who are research scientists or have gone in a completely different route. And it's a really lovely legacy to have, because if I have helped them in any way to get where they are, it's just a really lovely achievement. And so that is one legacy that I can be super proud of. Whilst I was in the graduate school, over the years that I worked there, I was promoted until I became the Associate Dean of Administration and Student Development. And so every time I got promoted or had new things added to my job description, I had to go off and learn new things. So the first things were I was certified in the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator and the Strong Interest Inventory. These are skills and assessments that I can use helping people when it comes to their career and what they would like to do. But I also had to learn other things. So I'd already written grants as a postdoc, but I was writing an awful lot more grants, and I was also writing applications for funding and working with foundations. And then I had to do grant management when we actually had the money. I had to learn business processes. So I had to learn how to look at budgets and make sure that we're keeping to them. I had to learn how to supervise multiple staff members and how to go through performance reviews and things like that. But I also had to learn educational things because I was a dean in a graduate school. So I had to learn about accreditation. So why is that important? And what does it mean? And how do you go through it? I had to learn about institutional research or institutional effectiveness, depending on what it's called at your institution. And so at each of these steps, I figured out what the gold standard was, and then I went out and received the correct training because I wanted to be able to do the role as well as I could. And so I didn't shy away from learning new things and realizing that I could do better if I went off and got the certification or the training in order to excel at this particular new role that I had. And so one of the things that you should look at is what is going to help you move on to the next thing? What skill do you want to build? Is this something that you can do now? Do you know what that is? Do you need to sit down with someone and have a conversation about the skill set that you have and what you want to develop? And so throughout the process of working in the graduate school, I realized that I really enjoy helping people, and I enjoy helping them and figuring out what they want to do when they leave. So some people get their graduate degree and they don't want to go off and do a postdoc, or they do a postdoc and then they realize they don't want to try and go the ivory tower route and they want to go off and do something else. And that's perfectly fine. Whatever your route is, it needs to be good for you. And I really, really enjoyed that. And a lot of the time I would have people coming in and asking for meetings because they'd had a thought late at night and they needed to ask a question. And I thought, well, what would happen if there was a website or a YouTube channel which is available where they could go when they have these thoughts and they can just watch a video. I can give them some tips. I can give them some pointers as to what they should be looking into. Sometimes I have a document that you can just download and follow the step-to-step guide of what it is. And so that's why Educated STEM came into existence, because I wanted to help more people, but I also appreciated the fact that I am one person. And yes, I do one-on-one consultations and I come out and give lectures at your research institutions and conferences and things like that. But what happens if you are stuck late at night and you're not going to be able to pick up the phone and ask me a question? Hopefully you can go and find the answer on either my website or in the YouTube channel. So if there's something that you want to learn about and I'm able to help, pop it in the comments and I'll see what I can do. I've got a very long list of things that I want to make videos on, so I can just add it to it. So please let me know. So throughout my career trajectory, there are 5 key points that I want you to take away. So my first one, you will make some glorious mistakes. You should learn from them quickly and move on. 2, always take every opportunity which comes along. It is usually where your next job offer comes from. 3, never put someone else's wants and desires ahead of your own. If they care for you, your desires will be equally important. 4, not everyone will like you, and that is okay. And 5, Never stop learning and challenging yourself. So I hope that my career trajectory, my career path, may be able to help you in some small way. If you have had similar experiences or questions, again, please pop them in the comments. I'm happy to share more if you want, or to learn from your experiences as well. If you want to support the channel, please subscribe to it and like the videos. And I really look forward to interacting with you again in the future. So thank you, and bye-bye.